Welcome. If you were here at the last session, Bonifacio mentioned at the end, this is the most brilliant session I've been in. I don't know if he's around, but we have promised ourselves this one will be the best session. So we have some competition here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Enrico. Grazie.
We have competition and we have some challenges because we'd like to get some extra water, please, if possible. We all know that all our guests
clean glasses.
need to, yes, thank you. New glasses and water. All our guests here on the stage need to think and to talk, so we need much more water. I am delighted to introduce this session because I'm sure it's going to be, of course, the best one. And we have to go back to 1988. And as you already know, Jacques Delors remarked that nobody falls in love with a common market. Since then, the European single market has led to unprecedented economic integration across the continent, resulting in closer relationship among member states as well as among SMEs and citizens. So I have three purposes for this session. First one, to celebrate the success of the single market. The second one, to investigate whether the single market engine has a fifth gear. And the third one, to continue the process of designing a set of measures that will take us to 2030 and beyond. So to start this exploration, I'd like to welcome our panelists today, starting with Enrico Letta. Hello. Enrico, former Prime Minister of Italy, independent rapporteur of the single market for the Belgian presidency of the Council. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's great to be here. I want to say that I had many meetings until now, but this event would be the best event, but also the best event for me, because I'm here to listen, to hear what are the ideas and the best ideas for the future of the single market, because I decided to, to share my role as rapporteur on the future of the single market. I'm supposed to present the report on the future of the single market that the Council and the Commission asked me to write in the month of March. But I don't want to be like someone alone thinking and having all the ideas, but I want to be a tool in your hands and to be all together. So this is why I started the journey. My journey started in Helsinki, in Finland, because Finland was the first country I visited. I thank very much the Spanish presidency for all the work that we are having in this very period. I'm meeting social partners, academic people, entrepreneurs and workers, boots on the ground, and the governments, because the idea is to try to respond to the famous provocation of Jacques Delors. And we will try to, to raise new reasons why we can fall in love with the single market. So in March, I want to say that I'll try to give you reasons to fall in love with the single market.
Fantastic. And since you mentioned hearing, please remember that we're going to leave some time at the end of the chats to listen to your questions, reflections, or comments. And for those that are following this session online, please also feel free to use the chat or the app to send us your question. So also with us, thank you very much. Also with us, Martina Dablayova, member of the European Parliament and co-chair of the SME Intergroup. Thank you very much. Bringing the perspective of employers is Stefano Malia, president of the European Economic and Social Committee's Employers Group. Welcome. And finally, the entrepreneur in the room, Hilde Ruten, CEO of Berhof Belgium. Hello. So, The first couple of minutes are for you.
Here.
Whenever you want. Since this is going to be the best session, feel free to use the lectern from here, whatever you need.
Just to say that first lesson in this very period, that Europe is today in a different mood rather than what happened when Jacques Delors launched the single market. He launched the single market 30 years ago, and today we are in a completely different situation where, first of all, the competition around us is the main topic. 30 years ago, the main topic was how to be competitive and how to deal competition among us, and today the main topic is abroad, the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is not only competitive, but is running competitiveness in a completely different way. And so, if I may say, the two main subjects we are having today are, first, how to be today independent on security, energy, technology. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was not the main topic. We were dependent on technology from China, on security from the US, on energy from Russia and from the Middle East. And today we all know that we need to be independent. Is it possible to have a single market preserving the four freedoms, being independent on these topics and being strong in terms of an industrial policy? And at the same time, we are here in the kingdom of SMEs. It's not easy for an SME to fall in love with the single market. Maybe it's easier for a big, large multinational company, because the feeling of the advantages is immediate for a large multinational company. But for an SME, the immediate feeling is linked to the threats that you are having with competition coming from abroad. An SME usually is working locally, and you feel that the single market can bring you some threats. How to push and how to boost the opportunities linked to the single market. And I stop here immediately, we have many challenges today linked to the two transitions, digital and green. These two transitions are the big achievement of the legislature that we are at the end of this at the European level. But at the same time, we know very well that all these transitions are bringing some over-regulation. And SMEs are suffering for over-regulation. So how to keep the mission for the two transitions, being able to help SMEs not to suffer too much of this over-regulation. So, as I told you before, I'm traveling around, I'm listening, I'm meeting social partners, academic people, the capitals. I'm trying not to be part of the Brussels bubble, but to be really boots on the ground. I'll try to present a report in March. I'm very free in what I'm trying to do, very independent. I'm trying to present a report that can be ambitious, interesting for SMEs. And this is why I say, please help me. I want to be a tool in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for the reaction from the European Parliament, please, Martina.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I am very honored to be here today in the SME Assembly and sharing the stage with all of you. It's great to be here, and if we discuss the single market and SMEs, both have a very special place in my heart. So the combination is like the most special combination. They have great importance to me as a politician, as a former entrepreneur, 20 years of business behind me, and a passionate European. When my home country, the Czech Republic, joined the EU in 2004, entering the single market was considered like a biggest benefit. It was like a dream coming true. Being part of the European internal market was the real reason why Czechs were so enthusiastic to join the EU, and of course the other countries who were joining in the same moment as well. Without any doubts, it remains our greatest benefit of EU membership to this day. 5 years later, in 2009, when the Czech Republic first took over the presidency of the EU, the motto was Europe without barriers. It is quite sad to say that when the Czech Republic held the presidency again last year, so in 2022, there were serious consideration to use the same motto. Because the motto could have been the same. And I think over a decade has passed and yet the barriers remain. I think this indicates that something is fundamentally wrong, that we have still a lot to do, a lot. No one feels the ongoing barriers more than European businesses. And no one feels the ongoing barriers more than European SMEs. The success of European enterprises is closely tied to the free movement of 4 freedoms in Europe. Without that, they will not be successful, and they will not be competitive. In my work at the European Parliament, I'm in contact with SMEs at a daily basis. I listen to their issues and problems and challenges and advocate for proposed solutions. And I must say that there are several surveys done by different associations, organizations, surveys we do in a research center in the European Parliament. And sometimes the biggest concern is administrative burden. Sometimes the biggest concern is lack of skills shortage. Sometimes it's access to finance. But one issue is always among the first 3, always. And it's obstacles of an incomplete single market. What is considered the biggest one? Definitely the complex administrative procedures. For example, the lengthy and complicated processes required the importing and exporting services need attention. Additionally, there is a pressing need to simplify regulation on cross-border trade. In this context, I welcome the Commission's proposal on the head office tax system. We have to look into it, but it's something, this is a really good step in the good direction. Another significant barrier to the single market is differences in national service and product rules. This includes variations in mandatory certificates for businesses. So the requirements to SMEs to obtain new certificates in each member state they do business in places that are a significant burden to them. As a third point, I will mention the need to harmonize contractual and legal practices between member states. Of course, this includes as well differences in consumer law or rules on guarantees and contractual remedies. What I also hear from SMEs is that they struggle with an insufficient access to information about rules and requirements. So I agree that maybe this single digital gateway has a lot of potential in this regard. And we really need the scope of this online one-stop shops need to be expanded. The whole concept should be improved with stakeholders' feedback. Another major topic is obstacles to labor mobility. And we could talk for hours about that. In this regard, improving the system of mutual recognition of qualifications is of course key, and we have been talking about it last decades. Of course, I can't forget to mention the posting of workers that has been discussed so much in the past, and we still have some obstacles there. Improvements are also needed in the support for the free movement of services. So, of course, one way to achieve this would be taking a closer look on how to implement and enforce the service directive. Another issue is the access to cross-border procurement. Local companies tend to be favored over foreign ones in public procurement. We should look at it a little bit closer. But of course, these are all long-standing issues that urgently need to be solved. I could go on with details, but I might be here until tomorrow morning, so I will stop shortly. But the question of the day is, what we can do about it. What are the ways out? Well, I don't have a solution for everything, but maybe I think I have some good pieces of advice that I believe can help significantly. The most important thing we need to focus on right now is how existing legislation is implemented and enforced. If this will be the only thing we will do, it will be a lot. That is absolutely crucial. Additionally, full harmonization is also needed to avoid gold plating in member states. We know very well some member states who love gold plating. If we want to look in the future, we must focus on creating a single market for digital services and capital markets. So we have to look at it closely. And the last point I would like to mention is how we handle industrial policy in the EU. The loosened rules for state aid after the COVID-19 pandemic risk putting SMEs at a disadvantage. And this is true for SMEs and it's true for especially smaller member states. It is absolutely key that we find a balance between a European industrial strategy, industrial policy, and maintaining a fair playing field for SMEs. Creating an addition to subsidies risks creating disruptive dependencies, and that could harm all of us. In summary, Europe without barriers is a great dream, but it's still out of reach. I am sure that we have some ways to change it, and we count so much on you, Mr. President, so much. I am convinced that the major focus for the EU in the future will be enhancing European competitiveness. To ensure that Europe remains competitive, it is essential to explore strategies to boost the competitiveness of SMEs. Competitiveness of SMEs means competitiveness of Europe. And this is the main message I want to leave you with. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you, Martina. Let's move to Stefano Malia from the European Economic and Social Committee.
Yes, thank you, and immediately allow me to say thank you for inviting me to address this panel today, and also to say immediately a big thank you also to Dr. Letta for taking on, because you need a certain amount of courage to take on this indeed interesting and important project. When thinking about today's session, this session of now, and I saw the title, Nobody Falls in Love with the Common Market, I actually thought that it should read, How Can You Not Fall in Love with the Common Market? And I say this because when you think about it, okay, it says thanks to the common market that we have the freedom to live anywhere in Europe, to travel, to work and to study, and also it gives us environmental protection, health protection, and above all, importantly for SMEs, it gives opportunities for growth. So indeed, I think the single market is something we need to cherish, and similar to what Martina just said, similarly, when my country, I come from Malta, we were debating very hotly whether we should enter the EU or not in 2004, and I was leading the European movement at that time. I remember arguing, because there was a lot of arguments about how much funds Malta would receive, when we would become net beneficiaries, and when we would be net donors, etc., etc. And I always argued that the biggest and everlasting benefit of membership would be the single market. And indeed, I think today this continues to bear fruit. In my mind, the single market is the core of European Union, and it brings in the most concrete manner possible the benefits that the European Union can bring to us as citizens, as SMEs, as enterprises. And even well, they're not kids anymore, they're 18 and 20 anyway, whatever you want to call them. But obviously when you speak to them today, it's about TikTok, online shopping, data anywhere in the EU. Okay? These are things taken for granted. And I think not only with the younger generation, but I think it's very important that we reinforce once again how important the single market is, and that we cannot take for granted the achievements that we have made over the years. But indeed, as has been said, the single market needs a certain amount of maintenance and it needs a certain amount of effort. And this is where, of course, Dr. Letta comes in. As he has said, rightly so, in his introduction, we are facing a number of successive crises, just the last 3, of course, when you speak about Brexit, when you speak about COVID, and you speak about the horrendous war Russia is raging on Ukraine, then you understand where we are. But over the past years, I would say the level playing field in the single market has been weakened by these crises, and we have allowed a number of exemptions to come in. And allow me to say immediately, already been mentioned, we need to bring under control state aid. State aid is not doing us any favors. It is harming the single market. It is harming enterprise. It is harming SMEs. And when I come to about harming enterprise, we've spoken about administrative burden. I won't bore you by repeating the same thing, but I must, because I think numbers always tell a good story. I must give you the numbers. Since 2017, 850 new obligations on enterprises. Since 2017. Up till 2022. And I think this is what we need to address. Of course, we have been told that there will be an effort to reduce by 25%, as far as I know, the reporting requirements. That is how I remember it. But we want to understand where, we want to understand how, and we want to understand exactly what the impact of this reduction will be, and that it will not be a ticking off the box exercise. So we've mentioned these 850 new obligations. Martina mentioned that we need to implement, rightly so, we need to implement and enforce current legislation. So whilst we are still struggling to implement and enforce legislation, we continue to churn out more. And the result, and again, if I may give some numbers, the result is that intra-EU trade in goods has nearly stagnated. In particular, SMEs continue to underexploit the growth of the single market, and only, and this is proven through surveys, only 23% of all EU SMEs have traded with a country other than their own. Only 23%. And SMEs continue to lag behind even when it comes to the adoption of digitalization. And we see that this continues to widen over the years. Services has been mentioned. Again, it's estimated that 60% of the current barriers to services have been in place for the past 20 years. And they continue to hamper us, they continue to hamper our growth, and they are indeed now hampering the twin digital and green transition. So I think it is very important that we continue to work to have a more business-friendly environment and direction of the EU, because we need this not only for its economy, but also for the EU to continue to act as an anchor of peace, prosperity, and stability. Very important in today's situation. Also, just some more quick numbers. You see that, first and foremost, I take a step back and I say that at the core of all our work as the Employers Group in the European Economic and Social Committee, where we represent some 20 million enterprises, is the issue of competitiveness. And we continue to see ourselves losing competitiveness with the United States, with China, with Japan, with South Korea, and indeed even with India. And we see, interesting enough, that in 2008, the EU was on par with the US in 2008, 14 years ago. And now we see that in 2022, the US economy is larger by 50% in just 14 years. The GDP per capita between the EU and the US has reached a difference of 105% by 2022. Between 2019 and 2022, we see that FDI, foreign direct investment, I say the lifeblood of our economy, we see that it has gone down by 2/3 in the EU, whilst it has gone up by 2/3 in the US. And we can continue, I guess, mentioning this. I must say, and I have said this publicly, and I will continue to say it, I will not hesitate to say it, that unfortunately, our feeling as employers with the current Commission was largely that it took jobs for granted, it took enterprises for granted, it took growth for granted. And I think it's only in the last year and a half that we have finally seen a Commission which has woken up to the importance of competitiveness, to the importance of protecting and taking care of our SMEs, to the importance of promoting growth. And indeed, I think the way we look at the single market, and I will start to conclude, the way we look at the single market is as an internal tool for our global competitiveness. So whilst the internal market is, of course, the internal single market, but we see it as the basis for us to achieve our global competitiveness. And in terms of essentials, very quickly, we have three of them. The first is that we need a competitive access to resources, energy, raw materials, capital. I know that Dr. Letta is keen on the capital union market. Secondly, we want open markets with equal rules and fair playing level field for all enterprises. And thirdly, and on this part, we have been asking the Commission to come up with an encompassing action plan. And here, I must look towards Dr. Letta for this, and we are hoping that indeed he will be able to come forward with ideas and recommendations on the achievement of the single market. And thirdly and lastly, we want to have a business-friendly regulation and taxation. So, to conclude, we have high expectations for what Dr. Letta is doing, also for what Mario Draghi will be doing, the report on competitiveness. We believe that, of course, one will overlap the other because the single market is competitiveness and competitiveness is also the single market. And we believe now that there are two things. The first, what we would like to see is that the reports are brave and clear about what we need. We need bravery and we need to be clear about what we need. And secondly, that the recommendations of both reports, because we are confident that they will be strong, the recommendations of both reports will be implemented without delay. And here, I will say, Dr. Letta, that as the employers group, as representatives of employers, you will find our full support. And indeed, we are open, and we have already discussed this briefly in the private meeting that you organized very kindly for us. We are very open to have a meeting with you also as the employers group, both before you have the report written, but also once you have the report written, so we can see how to move forward. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the debate.
Thank you. And Hilda, it's your turn. Do you prefer to use the lectern, or do you prefer to tell us your experience?
I prefer to relax already. It's a final day. First of all, I would like to thank you for joining this assembly. Now I can see for my own how many efforts is done by a lot of people to support SMEs. That's not always the case when you're on your daily work. We don't realize that, so that many people are working on it. I have a concrete example how the one market was very interesting, or is still interesting for us. During the pandemic, we were confronted with we work as a wholesaler and we work with B2B partners. So during the pandemic, we had we couldn't deliver anymore to retailers. So we really had to change very fast to adapt to the new market. Thanks to the funding of Flyo, we could reorganize ourselves. We organized our own web shops toward end consumers, and now we are confronted, of course, that it's a very growing market that we deliver directly to end consumers in Europe. But because of the one-stop shopping VAT regulation, now it's easy for us to declare our VAT. So that's a very big advantage as an SME.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. The debate is here, but I'd love to, they would love to answer to your questions. So please raise your hand and we'll reach you a microphone. Who has the first question? Sorry, you'll be the second because the first question is over there. Thank you. Could you please stand
Yes.
up? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Igor Kalinic and I work for the European Commission, but I will talk privately, of course. I have a question and it's a doubt, it's a brainstorming doubt for Professor Letta, Dr. Letta. You are talking about, and we are now talking, and it's very recently that we started talking about independency of the single market. And I'm a little bit puzzled because actually the very fundamental basis of the European Union were to make the national markets not independent, so that French and Germans would not fight each other. So nowadays, maybe even in this configuration worldwide, we didn't escalate the current war because there were still economic dependencies, although all the other negative things. How do you see this?
That's a good point. My answer is that I don't see contradiction. I think we can find independence on critical, crucial issues that are fundamental for our security in the future. And I think it's our responsibility as European institutions to do so, because the world around us had some evolutions that we didn't expect, I have to say, very frankly. Because what Putin did in Ukraine was come back to last century in a crazy way, but in a very concrete way. Ukrainian people are dying because of this crazy Putin's past ideas, and at the same time we need to be able to protect our people and to protect the future of the European Union. But at the same time, you know, I was yesterday in South Africa. I met some people there, I met government, I met entrepreneurs there. We need to understand that maybe we missed some great opportunities in the last years. Maybe too much focused in an inward-looking approach as Europeans. We didn't understand that the rest of the world was changing in a great evolution. And when you arrive in Joburg and you see full of advertising about China companies, China banks there, you think that maybe there's something wrong with us. Because Africa and South Africa, Southern Africa, is part of our common destiny for many reasons. I say that just to say one part of my report on the future of the single market has to deal with the geostrategic dimension of the single market. Single market as the way to show that being multilateral is a success, is a win-win. This is what we are, as you said very correctly, what we are experiencing every day within the European Union. And this is why I think we have to combine these two aspects. I don't see, I repeat, a contradiction, but only if we are able, I think Martina, Hilde, and Stefano were very good in showing concrete examples on how we have to boost this idea of single market as jobs, opportunity, richness, and the possibility for our people to be better. And this is exactly what I think we have to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, sorry. There's another question here, and we're going to make the answers short because I've seen we have many questions.
I'll try to be brief. My name is Burçak Yenel from the European Banking Federation. And as Mr. Letta also knows, I'm a former coordinator of the Markets for Europe campaign now from 4 years ago, of which Mr. Letta was a leader, which had aimed at the integration and development of capital markets as a way of enabling innovation funding and also as a catalyst for an ecosystem that is vibrant. My question, Mr. Letta, is for you. I know that you're still in the process of gathering input, but based on what you have been hearing so far, do you have a sense of whether the job at hand in terms of the single market in general, not necessarily just for capital markets, but single market, is more of an integration challenge that we have, an incomplete integration, as the MEP said. I think I agree with that, of course, as opposed to a development of a market, of a single market. Because obviously on the integration front, everything is in the hands of the European Commission, to the extent that the co-legislators will, of course, help and share the vision, but it's essentially about removing obstacles. Whereas when we're talking about development of the market, it's much more in terms of member states coordinating and doing things to actually develop their markets. Thank you.
I'm very short, even if the topic is so, but I think both. Definitely both, for a very simple reason. We have many fields where there's a lack of completion of the single market, and the Capital Markets Union is, I think, the best or the worst example on the completion level. And as you said, completion is in the hands of the European institutions, first of all. But I think there's also development. And when I say development for a very simple reason. When Jacques Delors started, and we were supposed to fall in love with the single market, the idea was a complete and wide single market. But then, from day one, each member state started discussing with the rest of the member states, saying that, okay, why don't we take away this from the single market? Why don't we exfiltrate this other topic? And then we started saying, yes, but telecom is a strategic national issue. That was the idea. Frankly speaking, I don't see any strategic national issue on telecom, because considering telecom as a national issue, we are allowing the American and the Chinese companies to become the masters at world level, because their dimension is so big. And which is the average of the clients for each company on telecom. In the US, each company has around 100 million. In China, 400 million each company. In Europe, 5 million. It is clear that there's a problem of scale where at telecom dimension, and I said telecom, but there's a long list: defense, energy, and so on and so forth. Then the single market became, yes, a strong issue, but I would say half of the complete single market. So there I see the need of a development, and that needs also the engagement of the European Council. This is why I think very happy, because my mandate comes from the European Council and from the Commission. So I'll try to push together both, because it is essential. Martina mentioned, and I stop here, the crucial topic of the enforcement. We have to be very clear on that. The enforcement today is in the hands of member states. And what I see, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but member states, I was very young, minister for the single market of my country some years ago. So I attended the the Council of Ministers of the Single Market. At that time, there was the scoreboard, competitiveness, and the Commission brought the countries to the European Court of Justice with sanctions. And so the idea was, okay, I want to be part of this common journey. Today, the European Court of Justice has, I would say, less work on that. if I use an euphemism. But the key point is the fact that the enforcement is completely in the hands of member states. That means that each member state, if it is alone in the Council against one new rule, the first, I would say, temptation is to say, okay, I don't stop, I allow the approval because I know that the enforcement is in my hands, so I know how to, I would say, slow down and to avoid a complete enforcement. But this is exactly the way to fragment the single market. A fragmented single market is an unsuccessful single market.
Thank you. Yes, over there.
Hello, I'm Liliana Busuyok and I am representing the Alliance of Small and Medium Enterprises from Moldova. Moldova recently received the EU candidate status, which we are very delighted. In the same time, we understand how complex this process will be. And honestly, I have a lot of questions, but I picked one. What would be your advice in terms of best practices that we should consider, not as a country, but as a representative organization for SMEs, that we should consider doing now? Thank you. And my question is to all the panelists who are willing to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Yes, please, Martin.
I have absolutely clear advice. You need to present immediately and to communicate immediately single market as an opportunity to your businesses, not as a threat. And you have to communicate this opportunity outside as well, not as a threat. Because I went through this before Czech Republic joined the European Union. Sometimes we were talking more about threats than about the opportunities. So change the communication, and you will avoid a lot of misunderstandings on your way.
So are you thinking about a positive mindset?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, I will give you a concrete example.
Yes.
When I was very young, during my university studies, I worked for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I was preparing for the minister papers how the new member states will affect labor market in the old member states. And this was a big problem because we were already starting in defending position. But it was an opportunity, and we missed this opportunity. So single market is opportunity. Okay, we are saying that it's incomplete, we are saying we still need to do more, but because we were to motivate to have 100% functioning single market, which is the greatest opportunity for SMEs.
Fantastic. Thank you. Stefano, you were nodding.
Yeah.
Anything else to ask?
I was nodding because I completely agree with Martina. As I said earlier on, whilst one can debate money, how much you're going to receive of funds and where you're going to spend them, and etc., the reality remains that as long as you are a member, the biggest benefit is the single market. It now, rightly so, we are saying that SMEs are struggling to take the full benefit of it. But even competition, I can also tell you from my home country, first and foremost, with incoming competition, resources move to where you are most efficient. So that also helps the economy, it helps the country. And secondly, through the competition of the single market, you get better products, you get better services, and you get better prices of higher quality. So I think these are all benefits, as Martina rightly says, that one needs to push in terms of the single market. But certainly, and I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, if you are representing SMEs, you have organizations here, and I see Veronique here in front of me, for example, of SME United, where there are people with vast decades of knowledge of how SMEs are benefiting from the single market, and I think that is the kind of expertise you should tap into.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there, please. I think these three questions, and we have to finish. Yes, 1, 2, 3.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Lisa Lang. I'm the Director for Policy at EIT Climate Kick. And I come with another opportunity. It's called sustainability.
Okay.
So Martina, thank you very much for that. So with the single market now turning 30, that concept, of course, the concept of climate change and the threat and sustainability was completely different from where we started. So I'm interested also to the entire panel to hear from you, like in which way can the single market support the business opportunity, sustainability, from a very mechanical perspective, policies, tax reduction for sustainable business practices, but also for connecting with external markets as well. I would very much like to give you the opportunity to talk about new opportunities.
Thank you very much. Who would like to answer? Yes, please, Hilde.
Yeah, I would like to answer this because tomorrow I will talk also about sustainability. As an SME, we started very early already in 2019 with our transition towards sustainability. We worked together with the United Nations for the UNITAR certificate about the SDGs. And I think there is a big opportunity for Europe to help SMEs to help with a framework, because a lot is done already for the big companies, for the who already have to have their report for the banks and so on. So I think to help a framework for every sector should be very helpful for the European Commission.
Yes, please.
Can I use this opportunity maybe to deliver a different message from what you're expecting? And here I want to refer to the Green Deal. So let me immediately qualify what I'm going to say. Climate change is here. It's not arriving. It's not something which is going to come. It's here. We've all seen all the natural disasters and situations that we have on our hands at the moment. And rightly so, Europe has decided to take the lead, and I say rightly so because it was either take the lead or end up being led by the US, China, and what have you. And we have now put forward the Green Deal, which, as a business community, we fully endorse. However, and I want to use this opportunity to launch this call as well, I said it this morning in one of the earlier panels, we firmly believe that at this point in time, and please, I need to use the correct words. We believe that we need to reassess a bit where we are with the Green Deal. I'm not saying stop the Green Deal, because I was then told that you can't stop it. I'm not saying stop the Green Deal. I'm saying we need to reassess whether the targets we have set are indeed achievable in the timeframes and with the technologies that we have set. And we are saying this because we have a feeling that we are going to come close to these deadlines and targets, and we will not be able to achieve them. And this will have two consequences. One, we will lose credibility internationally, and secondly, it will also disrupt our economy in terms of all the efforts we are doing. So again, reassess a bit where we are and whether we can arrive. And I'll give you also a very practical example.
And short.
Yes, I'm very practical, sorry. We talked about critical materials and critical industries. The steel sector. Everyone agrees today that the steel sector is critical for Europe. Now, nobody has reassured us yet that we will be or are able to produce enough clean energy for our steel industry to operate in Europe. Nobody. And I suspect that we are not in a position to yet guarantee this. So what we are asking for is, let's use the time we have ahead of us, maybe the next year, where we'll have a lull between Parliament and Commission, what have you, to undertake a bit of a reassessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. I'm sorry for the pressure, but I would like to include those questions, those last questions that we have. One is over there. Yeah, with the microphone, please. Yes, stand up. Yes, and then we'll finish with you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Stefan Moritz, Secretary General of European Entrepreneurs here at PME. During our meeting, Mr. Letter already referred to the 4 freedoms of the single market, freedom of circulation of goods and freedom of movement for people, capital, and so on. One of our problems is the freedom of movement of goods and people. Yesterday I asked our Basque member what should I say to Mr. Letta regarding the market, single market? His answer was que lo sea. That means that it finally becomes a single market because they have to wait 3 hours at the French borders to bring their trucks into the country. And they say it's easier to send goods to India than to France. And that is terrible after 30 years of single market policies. So we propose as European entrepreneurs to elevate the once only principle to a right. That means it must get into the treaties, in order that it is a right of the companies to get only once certified their products or only once certified the social security of their workers with the A1 form. And then it is the duty of proof of the other country to prove that this person or this good is not conform with the European legislation. I asked the co-legislator, Mrs. Dlabayova, if you think in the next parliament that if we could talk about this.
Thank you very much.
Well, Stefan, thank you. Very good idea. I think we could write this in some manifesto for the next legislation, for the next Parliament and Commission. But no, I absolutely see your point, and we could go on giving examples, and I absolutely agree with you that sometimes it's easier to send package from Czech Republic to India than from Czech Republic to Germany 50 kilometers over the border. So yes, I agree, and these are all points that I hope will be reflected somehow in the study. But let's prepare these points maybe for next legislation. By the way, I think that with this study, we can have a very good base for the priorities for next 5 years. And this will be one of the main points. Finally completing single market. Another point, and this was very, very good question, even if personal from European Commission colleague, but personal question, to find a balance between the single market and the strategic autonomy, or let's say open strategic autonomy. So we have a lot of tasks in front of us. It's good that we have the list of these tasks. This I consider very positive.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Last question, please.
It is for all, but I'll try to be very, very brief. My name is Ciprian Stănescu. I come from Romania, and at the border of the EU, we have some other countries that soon enough might not be at the border, but become the new border. So working with hundreds of startups from the region, also outside of the EU, Serbia, Moldova, etc., even Georgia, what we see is that they are where we were 10, 15, 20 years ago. Very excited about the EU. Very excited about the single market. So my question is, if we were to also change the relationship status of the market from single to in a relationship, how do you see not just the last 30 years, but the next 10, 15, even 20 years? Because we need to prepare ourselves already for the new members of the European Union. And I include here not just Moldova, but also Ukraine, but also Serbia and some other countries. And how do we not make fake promises or offer different realities than what we've heard? Because I've heard the good, but I've mostly heard the bad. About the SME access to each other in the EU. So how do we actually prepare not just the countries that join us in the single market in 10, 15 years, but how do we prepare ourselves so that we don't get a big fail, which feels that we are in at this point?
Thank you very much. Anyone who would like to answer, please? They are thinking.
No, we aren't thinking. I would give you the same answer I gave to the Moldavian colleagues. It's we need to change the perspective. Single market is an opportunity, not a threat. When you start to talk about the risks and threat, you already put yourself in defensive position. And that's not very comfortable if you want to create competitiveness in Europe. So we should really see this as a big, when we were joining the European Union in 2004, half of Western Europe was afraid about the skilled people coming from Central Europe and Eastern Europe. They will take our jobs. Today, we have skill shortage everywhere. We have people shortage everywhere. So we have to be ready for the opportunity. I don't like that we start to be very protective. And from there, we can prepare both ourselves and both the new countries, new candidate countries, if you look at it from different perspective.
So thinking about the future, and since we don't have much time, Professor, in a minute, could you please give us the end of this discussion about the future? Could you please share with us your ideas?
But first of all, I'm very happy that this meeting took place and is taking place in Bilbao. For the reason and the example that Stefan just raised before. Because it's very good that we are having discussions out of Brussels, first of all, and out of the national capitals. It is very important to be close to the borders of our countries, because the example of the border between France and Spain is there, and it's such a clear example that we have to take into account how to overcome and how to react to that. Otherwise, it's complicated to sell a single market or to make attractive the single market. At the same time, the last question gave me one point, and the point is the fact that when the Belgian government first asked me if I were interested to write this report, I immediately asked Jacques Delors himself. I'm the president of the Jacques Delors Institute, so my luck is to be able each 2 or 3 months to have the opportunity to visit the Lord's house and to meet him. And he was very happy, of course, but he told me one thing. And I'm starting my job and my mission with this, we say, North Star with me. And the point is, he told me, you have to remember that when I launched the single market 30 years ago, aside launched the cohesion policy. And it was in the same time. There's no single market, there's no successful single market without a successful and strong single cohesion policy. Because, of course, at that time it was in a different situation, but today we had the experience of the big enlargement on 2004, 2006, 7, 13, and we are entering the new big enlargement journey, and it is clear that this journey needs to have in mind that even the single market, I say that, even the single market and even the accession to the European Union can't be a problem without a successful cohesion policy. Because mobility of the people means that people can leave the poorest regions to go to the best regions in terms of opportunities. And the consequence of that is a completely asymmetric European Union. And we don't want an asymmetric European Union. I conclude saying that I would like a single market when we can dream to move. But I would like also a single market when we can dream to stay where you are, when you live, when your parents used to live, and you want to stay there. And it's not, I would say, a bad thing to stay where your parents used to live. And the European Union can't be considered as an opportunity only for those who want to move. Otherwise, I think it's a cleavage within our societies. And today we are experiencing this cleavage and this shock, and we have to overcome it. So this is why the single market is a dream for those who want to move, but it has to be a dream also for those who want to state. That is, I think, the big challenge for the next decades and also for the enlargement.
Thank you very much. Before we conclude, let's add another voice, because I would like to welcome to the stage, please, Audi Slotboom, Director of Strategy and Economic Analysis at DJ Grow. Welcome, please. What is yours?
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here to say some concluding words, but of course after such a distinguished discussion it is very difficult to add anything very intelligent. But let me start with the first quote of Jacques Delors: "Nobody falls in love with a common market." We look forward to find the reasons in your report, Dr. Letta, next year. But I also wanted to say that I already heard a number of things in the discussion, starting with what Mr. Mallia said. When Malta joined, the biggest economic gains were about the benefits of being in the single market. The single market is sometimes seen as a boring legal construct with technical regulations that nobody is aware of, which some funny technocrats write in Brussels. But it is so much more. It is really the basis for our jobs, competitiveness, and our welfare. If the single market is not doing well, our economies are not doing well. Secondly, the EU in the world, our negotiating power, what we can do in the multilateral context, in international negotiations. Our power is determined by the strength of our single market. And finally, going into even more emotional issues where people can really be passionate about. The single market is not about unimportant technical standards only, which may seem unimportant to some people. It is about our norms and our values. What you read in the regulations of our rules-based single market is what we want to do collectively for climate, for the protection of minority rights, for consumer protection. The single market is very much about value choices as well. We heard in today's discussion many problems which exist and which need to be solved. SMEs were put forward by many as those who would stand to benefit the most from a deeper integration in the single market. A level playing field, state aid, better competitiveness, the benefits of competition for resource allocation, get rid of excessive regulations, further eliminate the barriers which make single market not an opportunity but maybe a threat. Sustainability as one opportunity. This came very clearly from the audience. Better enforcement, and since many speakers explained what they had done in their youth, I'm also happy to say that when I was a student of single market economics, I read about the single market scoreboard and how the Commission at the time faced the member states in EU 12 with what the consequences were of their choices not to transpose a directive, or the member states which were those which were lagging behind in not making it possible to set up a new company in less than half a year. And the scoreboard had a lot of impacts. And now that I have the privilege to work on these topics myself, I'm also happy to say that this year we strengthened the scoreboard. The scoreboard is there, it is on our website. We have beefed up the more enforcement-related traditional parts with much more economic evidence of where member states are and where the EU is in comparison to its main economic competitors. And our intention is to report on our findings and push that report up to the European Council next year. This is what we have on our radar screen. On the problems, of course, many of the long-standing issues, lack of labor mobility, lack of integration in services came up. These are well-known issues, but that brings me to my last question, which actually was put in very elegantly from the audience. Is the key issue now to look at the unfinished business of what has not been done that we started 20 years ago? Or should the focus be, this is how I interpret your question, should the focus be at looking at the new things which are emerging? And I found this panel really superb, and the questions in terms of looking into the future. I heard many people say, look, we have new issues. We have, as Dr. Letta said, we have a problem in being too dependent. When 20 years ago we measured success of integration by the share of intra-EU trade in GDP, now our main problem often seems to be how we can have access to raw materials that we need for batteries, for electric vehicles, how we can buy things from third countries which we don't have in the EU, or how we can enhance production, extraction in the EU. But the question is not so much about can we boost further intra-EU trade, but also how can we make our supply chains much more resilient, and that obviously involves also trade with third countries. Also, in terms of looking at the markets, we are no longer only looking at how goods cross borders in lorries and how borders may be closed when there is a next pandemic or terrorist attack. We are now working in the area of digitalization. We are looking at markets which are somewhere in a cloud. We are working very much on a data economy, and this has very much changed the way we look at the single market. And as a final example, enlargement. We got many questions from the audience, and the EU's future is very much the future of a very large single market and the integration of the future new member states. So for all this, from the Commission, I can already say that we are all very much looking forward at this report and are looking forward to all the recommendations and conclusions that you will draw. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oti. Thank you very much for your words. Thank you very much for being with us today. But remember that we still have the AP Awards at 6:45 here. Until that moment, I told you this would be the best session. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. See you later.